Chapter 23, Bring It On. Now that chemo was over, I started to look ahead to the next pit stop on my race to beat cancer, my bilateral mastectomy. There were 28 days between my last chemo treatment and that surgery. I spent those days focused on coping with the lasting side effects from the chemo. I think that people often assume that once someone has completed all his or her rounds of chemo, then he or she is done, finished, back to normal. Oh, if only that were true. I had side effects that lasted for years after I had finished with the chemo treatments. They definitely lessened over time, but they were still there. As I waited for the day of my surgery to arrive, I spent most of the time being completely exhausted. Each day it took all the strength I could muster to just make it out of bed. My joints ached and my muscles were fatigued. I was also still dealing with bouts of nausea. My hair was slowly trickling in, but I was losing my fingernails and toenails at an alarming rate. The poor things looked as though a hammer had pummeled them. They were black and blue and so tender to the touch. I'm also sad to say that my eyebrows and eyelashes finally succumbed to the poison. They hung on as long as they could, the poor things. That was probably because, according to my husband, I had the world's toughest eyebrows. He was always teasing me about how wiry they were. But I will take wiry eyebrows if it meant that they could hang on clear until the end of my chemo treatments. I even had a few who must have been like Navy SEALs or something because they never left me. Bless you, you sweet little eyebrow soldiers. By saying you made me feel and look less like an alien. In the day or two before my surgery, my good friends, Panic and Anxiety, decided to pay a visit. They had been hovering near the doorway for a little while, waiting for me to get comfortable. Now they saw an opportunity to fill my mind with worry, sorrow, and fear, and they took it. I would be performing a simple task such as loading the dishwasher when the reality of the surgery slapped me across the face. I was in my early 30s and would be losing my breasts soon. How did this happen? The tears would begin to trickle down my cheeks and the sadness forced me to stop whatever I was doing. After each tear fest, I would remind myself of how fortunate I was to be to this point in the journey and be facing such a hopeful and positive outcome. My latest PET scan showed no presence of cancer anywhere, and my doctors were all positive that once the mastectomy was complete, there would be no trace of cancer left behind. As I dried my tears and returned to my task, the sadness lingered a bit. I was sad to be losing this part of me, but I was ready to say goodbye to the girls. Although they were part of me for many years, I disliked them the moment I found out they were trying to kill me. They had to go. Finally, the day of my surgery arrived. Mark and I stepped out of the car and into the chilly early hours of the morning. We walked into the hospital, hand in hand, feeling calm and as ready as we were going to be. Panic and Anxiety had been forced to pack their bags, and I was filled with a perfect feeling of sweet stillness. I had angels in my corner, both here and in heaven. I also had the assurance that God loved me and would take care of me. I felt that everything would be fine. After I checked in and we were situated in a room, I had to get dressed in a terribly stiff hospital gown. It was not like the other gowns that I had been offered before. At least those ones were somewhat soft and flowy. This one was stiff and scratchy. It was not comfortable, and I was just about ready to say thanks, but no thanks, when the nurse showed me the gown's magical powers. She drew my attention to a grommet near the top of the gown. In that grommet, she placed one end of a long hose. The other end was connected to a small machine on the wall behind me. Finally, she flipped a switch, and in an instant, I was enveloped in warmth that spread from my shoulders to my toes. Just a few moments earlier, I was cursing whoever had invented this uncomfortable gown, and now I was blessing them. It was a feeling of pure bliss, and I settled down into the hospital bed, never wanting to leave. I stayed in that state of euphoria for about an hour. Then they yanked me from my warm cocoon and wheeled me to the surgery staging area. I found it very rude that they would share that delicious warmth with me, only to replace it with harsh coldness. That staging area was frigid, and there was no magical hose waiting there to warm me up. While we waited in the surgical prep area, Mark and I were bombarded with questions and information from the surgical nurse who would be assisting in the surgery room. I was getting a bit restless and tried to be patient while she went over all the protocol items, but I really just wanted to get this show on the road. Finally, things got rolling as the anesthesiologist came in to start my IV. He decided that the safest place for it would be in my foot. I could not have it anywhere on my right arm or hand because of the risk of lymphedema, due to the lymph node removal from my last surgery. My left arm was also out because of the work that they would be doing on that side of my body. So that left us with my foot, which was fine with me until he jabbed the needle into it. Yowza! I did not expect it to hurt more than having it in my hand or arm, but it did. After the anesthesiologist left, my surgeon, Dr. Leckman, stopped by to discuss his portion of the surgery. Then my plastic surgeon, Dr. June Chen, came in to talk to us about her part in the surgery. She also used a Sharpie to draw all over my chest. That was a new experience for me, but it was necessary so that everything that needed to be removed would be, and everything that needed to stay would stay. My surgery was going to be a skin-sparing bilateral mastectomy, performed by the very capable Dr. Leckman. In this particular type of mastectomy, the surgeon can remove the breast tissue while keeping the breast skin and oftentimes the nipples. Dr. Leckman was confident that this procedure would be the correct one for me, and I felt good about it as well. After Dr. Leckman had completed the mastectomy portion, it would be Dr. Chen's turn to begin the reconstruction process. That would involve inserting a tissue expander in each of my breasts. Tissue expanders are evil, but more on that great adventure later. When Dr. Chen completed her portion, it would be time for me to be wheeled into the recovery area. I must pause for a moment and share with you the interesting experience that I had while writing this portion of my story. Up to this point, I'd been good about writing details of everything that was happening to me, both in my journal and on my blog. But when I sat down to write about my mastectomy day, I realized that the details were not there. I searched my chemo-clouded brain and came up with as many details as I could, but sadly did not come up with many. Obviously, there was no way for me to know what went on while I was in surgery, and in the days that followed, I was on a lot of pain meds, so that added to my cloudy brain. That is when I turned to the love of my life, hoping that he could once again step in and save me. He could not remember specific details, so he opened his journal to see if he had written anything there. What he found there amazed both of us. There, in his journal, was a detailed account of the entire surgery day. He noted that it was strange to have that type of journal entry because normally he did not write in his journal using a specific timeline format. Was this a coincidence? I think not. This experience was confirmation to me that this book needed to be written. There was no other explanation as to why Mark would suddenly choose to write such a detailed entry in his journal. Yes, this was most definitely not a coincidence. The following is what he wrote. 9:14 a.m. I just got a call from the surgical nurse. Des is in surgery and things are progressing well. We got here at 6 a.m. Des changed into her gown and was taken into the surgical prep area. Dr. Leckman came in and talked to us again about his part of the surgery. Finally, Dr. Chen came in and drew all over Des's chest to mark the areas she will work on. Then we had to separate. It hadn't seemed real to me until we were sitting in the pre-op area. I haven't really been nervous or worried. However, sitting down there, seeing her get prepped for surgery, it hit me. I've almost lost her 2 times now. First when she was pregnant with Josh, and now with cancer. When I kissed her goodbye, my eyes welled up, and I continued to fight tears as I walked down the hall to the waiting room. I know everything will be okay, but it is still hard to see someone you love have to face such a painful physical and emotional challenge. The surgery started at about 7:30 and should last for 4 to 5 hours. 10:10 a.m. The nurse just called again. They've completed removing the left breast tissue and are beginning to work on the right. Des is stable and doing well. It makes me sad to hear that the tissue is gone. It makes me sad for many reasons, but mostly because I know how this can affect Des's self-image. She will have reconstruction, she will look great, but it'll be different. She's had so much sadness lately. I hate the fact that this will be a permanent reminder of this difficult year. She told me the other day that several women in her support group had their husbands leave them after losing their hair or having a mastectomy. This has never crossed my mind. While I obviously enjoy the way her body looks, my love for her has absolutely no dependence on her appearance. 12:10 p.m. Dr. Leckman just came out and told us, Des's mom has arrived to wait with me, that his part is done. He was very happy with how it went and felt like Des will be happy with the results. It was terrific news. I am relieved and very appreciative. He has been wonderful to us. He has never made us feel like he is rushed or needs to be someplace else. He has a very calm, reassuring manner and has always made us feel optimistic. What a wonderful blessing to have such a competent, caring man to help us through this scary situation. Now Des is in Dr. Chen's hands. Dr. Leckman mentioned that she is a perfectionist. That means it will be a while still, but it will be done right. I have prayed many times, thanking my Heavenly Father for blessing us to live in a time when we have the medical ability to cure this disease. Not many years ago, it would have been a matter of time until she became more and more ill as the cancer continued to spread until it eventually would kill her. 1:34 p.m. I just received the latest update. They are closing up the incisions and Des is doing well. Dr. Chen should be out in 30 to 40 minutes to give me an update. Des's Aunt Sherry is here now. She had her last chemo treatment just as Des was diagnosed. It has been good for Des to have her as a resource. She is a very loving person and has always made sure to give me a hug. She actually ran in the St. George Marathon just a few months after completing her treatments. Des has to lie down after walking up the stairs. I don't know how anyone could run a marathon. What an amazing person. 10 p.m. Des finally made it to her room around 4 p.m. I could tell she was still very groggy from the anesthesia. Dr. Chen said everything looked really good. It took longer than planned because she participated in a study where they used contrast and a monitor to check blood flow. She was very nice and took the time to explain things to me. I tried to express to her how much I appreciated all her hard work to make sure the results were the best they could be. I snuck out for a little while to get Des flowers and to grab a bite to eat. Val and Brian, my co-workers, were nice enough to feed the kids by taking them 5 boxes of pizza. I couldn't believe how much there was, but Val wanted to make sure we had plenty of leftovers to eat. My co-workers have all been incredibly nice and supportive. I am blessed to have such a great job. While I was out, a pretty big snowstorm started. Pauline, Des's mom, was going to bring the kids to visit, but both Des and I had separate, distinct impressions that she shouldn't come out in the weather. So we ended up Skyping with the kids instead. I made it home about 8:30 p.m. I'm so happy the surgery went well. They were able to save Des's nipples, and both doctors seemed very happy with the results. I am very hopeful that my fears about her self-image will turn out to be unfounded. Either way, she is still here with me, and we have the promise of a long, happy life together. I am so blessed. Excuse me for a moment while I search for some tissues. I have an amazing husband. He is one of the many reasons that I fought so hard to live. We have a lot of living to do together, and I am so grateful to have him by my side now and throughout eternity. I could not have made it through this experience without him. Love you, honey.